The Surge is one of my favorite games of all time. When I first played it, I was determined to beat it, just to say I gave it a fair shake, but I was not really feeling it. I stuck through it, and as I uncovered more and more, I found myself getting deeply invested in the story and world. The game just dripped atmosphere and left a profound effect on me that left me wanting more, and then the second one came out and was a completely different game, but that's for a later video. This game has to be one of the greatest obscure gems I've ever played. It seems like everyone who played through this game enjoyed it, but most people just dismissed it as a Dark Souls clone. While it definitely takes inspiration from Dark Souls and Bloodborne, it does enough differently to be enjoyable on its own. It's actually the only Souls-like that I've played, and I played a lot of Souls-like, that felt like a breath of fresh air. So why am I talking about a game that came out 3 years ago that has already been covered by other YouTubers? I think most people who heard about this game thought, oh cool, and moved on. I hope by making this video I can share why I love this game so much and convince at least one person to give the game a shot. The Surge starts off by showing you a futuristic world where Creo, a large tech company, is hiring people to do something. It's not really clear at the beginning what your job will entail, just that Creo is the company, Don Hackett is their spokesman, and Creo is saving the planet. I'm sure they won't turn out to be evil all along. Hey, just because the story is a bit predictable, it's not any less engaging. The game follows Warren as he rides a subway to the Creo facility, which comes to the first complaint people have about this game. You can't create your own character. This game definitely takes influence from Dark Souls, but it didn't set out to do exactly what Dark Souls did. If you want that, you can play Dark Souls. The story revolves around Warren. It shows Warren's motivations, Warren's personality traits, Warren's faults, and the story would have been far worse just revolved around a random protagonist. Anyways, Warren gets off the subway and applies to Creo. He's then fitted with an exo-rig, a device that screws onto your spine and skull that allows handicapped people to move and even makes them more powerful. So, Warren goes to have the exo-rig put on when something goes wrong. The machine performing the operation doesn't give Warren anesthesia, and he's forced to go through the operation, fully conscious, feeling everything.
Rig installation program running. Program complete. Patient sedated. Initiating surgery. Implanting neural link.
Yeah, I suppose I should mention this is a horror game. That's all you get. Warren wakes up in a junkyard as some drones carry him out into the trash, and you're left wondering what the hell happened and why all the Creo employees and robots are suddenly trying to kill you. Damn it, Alexa! I'll start with the gameplay since that's the most important thing in a Souls-like. Right away, this separates itself from Dark Souls with the basic attacks. There's no shields and no right-hand or left-hand weapons. You pick your weapon and that's it. This may sound limiting, but it actually makes it more streamlined. The Surge is not as much of an RPG as Dark Souls, plus look at Bloodborne. That game had no shields, far less weapons and weapon types, and was still way more fun than Dark Souls 2 and 3. In the Surge, there's only 5 weapon types, and each weapon type has quite a few different options. The different options have a bunch of different stats that affect your damage output, hit speed, stamina, and elemental damage applied to each weapon. Each weapon is also your shield. Depending on what type of weapon you have, you can block certain attacks. The more you block, the more your stamina goes down. You can also perform a parry by blocking at the perfect time and attacking immediately afterwards. Some weapons attack very slowly and do a lot of damage, others the exact opposite. The cool part is, it actually felt like certain weapons were too slow for certain bosses. You can beat the entire game with any weapon if you're good enough, but it encourages less skilled players to experiment with new weapons. The best thing about the gameplay is the cutting element. You don't find armor and you don't unlock it, you cut it off your enemies. An armor set consists of an arm, leg, chest, and headpiece. Cutting each of these body parts unlocks that gear schematic. unlocking enough armor pieces, and you can craft the armor. When you lock onto an enemy, you can select which body part to attack. Some parts are armored, and when you attack these parts, it does less damage, but you're rewarded with an armor schematic or armor pieces after successfully making a cut. Other parts aren't armored. Attacking these spots deals way more damage, but you don't get anything from killing the enemy. This system makes every encounter more engaging. Oh, that dude has a liquidator set? I need the head schematic. Oh, he has an armor set I already unlocked the schematic for? I can still use some leg pieces to craft a different armor set. I have no healing items left? I better go for a quick kill and not worry about the armor. The weapons are unlocked in the same way. See a cool staff you want to unlock? Just chop the dude's arm off and he'll drop his weapon and you can use it right away. Just like Dark Souls had equipable rings that change your stats, the Surge has implants that you put on your rig that basically controls your body. If you want to heal constantly throughout the game, you can equip 4 healing implants and you'll have a bunch of healing items that replenish every time you rest at a bonfire. I mean save bay. If you always find yourself running out of stamina, you can use a bunch of stamina boosting implants. Lastly, you have a drone. Honestly, this was kind of the weakest element. You unlock quite a few different drone modules, but I really only ever used 2. Your drone is an add-on you get after fighting the first boss that can open certain doors and also has the benefit of shooting enemies to draw them closer or knock them over the edge. Later on you get a module that launches itself at the enemy, another one gives you a shield for a few seconds. These are all fine, but other than shooting at enemies to draw them away from a bigger group, and a module that lights enemies on fire, I didn't have much use for this. As you attack enemies, you build up your energy meter, which you can use to activate your drone, perform cuts on enemies, or even use implants to heal yourself. The energy is temporary though, and slowly decays anytime you're not fighting an enemy. This also kind of forces you to stay aggressive if you want to unlock armor pieces. You can't build up energy for a cut if you fight too passively. Here's the first complaint about this game that I feel actually holds up. Not enough varied enemy types. You have your basic human enemy, which are just dudes that have gone mad due to their exo-rig taking over. You fight these kinds of enemies in every single level. The only variety is different armor sets and weapons, but they all fight in exactly the same way, excluding the flamethrower enemies. Once you get good at fighting them, you won't have a problem with them later on, unless they take you off guard. There are a couple of robot enemies, drones, a mess of nanite, and an enhanced humanoid enemy. Like I said though, having the element of cutting different body parts and unlocking new armor really stops fighting the same enemy type from getting stale. As for the other enemies, they can be really fun to fight if you know what you're doing. This 3-legged robot is really cool to fight. It swings a blade around either up high or down low. You can duck or hop over this and attack right away, causing the enemy to be stunned for a few seconds. This is really cool because the enemy takes a lot of damage from the back, but not much anywhere else. So being able to stun it makes the fight way easier, and performing a perfect dodge and hitting the enemy right after is incredibly satisfying. You can also hop and duck other regular enemy attacks, and performing a counterattack does a huge amount of damage. Then there's this box looking robot that has a laser that comes out of the top. You can target the laser and destroy it, making the enemy a lot easier to fight. The final area has enhanced humanoid enemies as well as a mess of nanite, which are extremely difficult to fight. They're so hard, in fact, the first time I played through the game, I just ran through the last level to the boss. However, the second time I was able to find a pretty good strategy for fighting them that made it easier. But I think it was also because I was a much higher level my second playthrough. I'll get into the reason for that later on. The next complaint I hear a lot is that this game doesn't have enough bosses. There's only 5 main bosses and 2 mini bosses, one of which you fight several times throughout the game. I don't see this as a problem because the boss fights that are here are pretty good. Dark Souls 2 taught me it's better to have a few really good boss fights than several shitty ones. With the addition of the DLC, it adds 2 bosses and several regular enemies the game tries to pass off as a boss. The bosses, with the exception of one, are all giant robots or machines that have gone bad after the Surge. These enemies are super threatening and felt appropriate. I remember in Dark Souls and Bloodborne seeing a giant enemy and thinking, holy shit, I gotta fight that thing? And the bosses in the Surge felt the same to me. The bosses felt much more threatening, especially due to being sparse. The fights themselves are fun and aren't too much of a challenge. However, each boss has conditions for beating them that will reward you with a secret weapon. All of the bosses drop a weapon after defeating them, but beating them in a certain way will unlock the 2.0 version of their weapon, which is just a much better version of the weapon that they normally drop. For Pax, he shoots rockets and you have to have him hit himself with his own rockets to beat him. However, if you knock him down by attacking his legs and never let any of the rockets hit him, you unlock his secret weapon. The Firebug you have to beat only after destroying all of its legs to unlock the 2.0 weapon. The Big Sister you have to beat without destroying all of its lasers. The Black Cerberus fight is really cool because it keeps unleashing Pax units as you fight the Black Cerberus, but if you destroy 2 giant reactor things using the Pax rocket, you get the 2.0 weapon and the Black Cerberus's full armor set. Finally, the final boss carries 2 weapons, so you have to chop off the right or left arm to get each weapon, meaning you have to play through the game twice if you want both weapons. This reminded me of the tail weapons from Dark Souls, and a lot of these rewards actually make the boss fight easier. On the Black Cerberus fight, the Pax units keep coming several times, but if you destroy the reactors, you only have to fight one. This is a huge sticking point with some people. I've heard a lot of people say all the levels look the same and that the level design is horrible. Well, for the looks, it makes sense that the levels look the same because you're in a factory. You're not going to find a lava stage and a blizzard stage inside of Creo Industries. Each level has maintenance tunnels you can go through, and these definitely are used too much and look exactly the same. And even though it makes sense from a story aspect, I can see the complaints with these, and I've even gotten lost and turned around in these no matter how many times I play through the game. As for everything else, I can easily tell where every level is based on a screenshot. A little more variation could have been added, but I think it works for what the game is trying to do. Put you in a factory with crazy people and angry robots and create a harsh and oppressive atmosphere. As for the level design itself, there are shortcuts everywhere. Too many shortcuts, in fact. After you've completely explored a level, there's a shortcut to literally every single area in the level, which is a good and a bad thing. If you don't have the DLC, you have to walk from every area to get to the next. There's no warps or transports like in Dark Souls, and the DLC doesn't let you warp until after you get to the last level. Each level also only has one rest area. This makes a lot of the shortcuts make sense, but some of them literally don't save any time or take you somewhere you have no reason to go back to. When the game design is at its best, you can easily walk to an elevator right next to the rest area, drop through a vent, and you're at the end of the level, ready to fight the boss. At its worst, there's a few unnecessary shortcuts. I'll take the Surge's game design any day. There's a hallway that leads to a boss that has 2 enemies in it, and there's a shortcut that lets you run over top of the enemy so you don't have to risk running past them. This game has all of the shortcuts. My favorite aspect of this game is the atmosphere. Large sections of this game are very dark, some completely pitch black. All you have is your flashlight on your rig to light your way. Every bit of this game is covered in turns and little nooks for enemies to be hiding in. A strong enough enemy can easily kill you in one hit, making every step you take tense. As you walk through the game, the music amps up and gets more and more creepy, putting you on edge. Sometimes you just hear screaming in the background, letting you know you're about to have a bad time if you keep going. There's an Alexa type narration that kicks in when you're at a save station, and tell me this isn't the most passive aggressive robot you've ever heard.
Take care. Be careful out there. Good to see you.
Everything about this game makes you feel like something's off. Speaking of the save station, there's a song that plays over the speaker in a kind of grainy way, and this song is just perfect for the game. It doesn't get annoying after hearing it, but instead, every time you round a corner and start to hear that music, you know you've made it back. The lyrics sound like they were written for the game, and it's just depressing enough that it adds to the horror and makes everything seem hopeless. There's constantly dead bodies strewn about all over the place, creepy writing on the wall, and audio logs that help flesh out the story. Some of these audio logs are super dark, and a great way of telling the story while keeping the player engaged.
I finally reached my limit. I told her to fuck off. And then it happened. Right outside up. My whole body. Everything hurt. I remember hitting the floor. Opening up my shirt. There were cuts and bruises everywhere. I can hardly move or breathe now. I don't know how I'm gonna make it. Left eye is blind again. What did that bitch do to me? I was fine. I was totally fine, and then all of a sudden, the agony. I'm broken. What's happening to me?
There's no long cutscenes. In fact, there's almost none in the whole game. Just like Dark Souls, the story is told by talking NPCs, contextual clues, and, unlike Dark Souls, audio logs. This game has side quests by interacting with NPCs in certain locations, giving them something they're looking for, or just talking to them. These are all interesting, although one of them is just a complete waste of time. One of the NPCs is looking for a drug so he can feel better. You give him the drug and that's it. He says thank you and stays in the same spot until the end of the game. There's no real conclusion. One character, you help find his daughter, and his daughter is a robot. It's not really clear if you put his daughter's consciousness in a robot, or if he just programmed a robot to act the same way his daughter did. But either way, he is still attached to her as if his real daughter is a robot, and you can probably guess how this quest shakes out. Stories like this, and side quests like this, definitely help flesh out the story and ask questions like what it means to be human, and if a robot can really be considered a human. These robots you've been killing the entire game just seem like void creatures, but then you meet this dude and his daughter is one of the creatures that you've been killing, and you can interact her like she's a little kid. She gets scared, she wants to play, she has a bow that she wears, and clearly the dad cares about her as if it was his real daughter. There's also another side story where you help a woman along the way by giving armor and weapons to her. Like Sigurd, you grow attached to this character and are forced to watch them slowly go crazy like everyone else in this world. This one was definitely my favorite side story. The last two involved just helping people by saving one guy from inside a locked room and giving a woman in the vents tech scrap, this game's currency. The person you give tech scrap to turns out to be up to no good, and you ended up helping her do what she does. I'll let you see for yourselves. Play this game, please. To avoid any spoilers, you can skip to the time written on the screen, but I won't be spoiling much, because the story is way better if you experience it yourself. So what exactly happened to cause all these daggum robots to go crazy? There was a surge. The surge. So yeah, right away someone starts talking to Warren through a projection, telling him what he needs to do. This is Sally, and she's our basic guide through the game. Along the way, we learn that Creo is trying to rebuild Earth's atmosphere and repair the planet through Operation Resolve. Dr. Chavez was behind Operation Resolve, and its goal was to slowly reverse the effect of pollution, and it was working, although it was working too slowly. That's when they came up with Project Utopia. Dr. Chavez was completely against this, and although Project Utopia would work, it would kill 95% of Earth's population. You get little tidbits about the people running Creo through Don Hackett.
That's certainly good to hear. There have been rumors about a new version of Project Resolve or something to replace it.
There will always be rumors. R&D is doing some incredible work, and we'll always try and push the envelope here at Creo. It's what we do. But let me assure you, we've crunched the numbers, and Project Resolve is the way forward.
Thank you so much for your time.
Don Hackett is the voice of Creo, and constantly is seen on TV screens throughout the level, giving updates about what Creo is working on and why you should trust in Creo. You really get attached to Don Hackett and feel like he's with you on your journey. Even though you can tell something isn't right with Creo, Don Hackett always gives off good vibes and seems like someone you can trust.
I know. You've heard me say it again and again, but Creo cares. Let's be honest. Over the last couple of decades, things haven't been too great. We know. We've seen the figures, and that's why we created Project Resolve. But with an ailing population, developmental problems, disability rising at an alarming rate in children, some would have you believe it's too late. At least that's what elements in the media would have you believe. But Creo has you covered. From family daycare centers to full medical coverage, your family is our family. The average workplace can be littered with hazards. But at Creo, we're proud to say we never had more than a stuffed toe. With the implementation of our rigs, we've made you stronger, faster, tougher. The rigors of the workplace won't even give you pause. And due to the integration of your neural interface into Creo's core system, our professional healthcare staff can monitor your well-being 24/7. If that doesn't make you sleep tight, I don't know what will.
Finally, upon learning what Creo wants to do and what it will mean to the rest of the world, Don decides to take his own life for the role he played in helping Creo.
I don't want them to get me. I know they're there. I can hear them. They were never who they pretended to be. And I helped them create that lie. Don't let Jewel know. Please don't tell her. Don't tell her. Don't tell her it ended like this. I love you both. Please know that. Always loved you, Rihanna. I always. No one compared. I don't want to think that that's the last time I'll hear your name. After a lifetime of speaking over...
This is it. This is the room where Don recorded so many of his messages, and it ended up being where he died. Sally and Dr. Chavez continue to help you, and you find out a rocket will be launched with Project Utopia on board. Sally tries unsuccessfully to upload a virus to the rocket to keep it from destroying everything. She's killed just a few feet from the terminal where she tried to upload the virus. You're given the option to finish out Sally's mission and destroy Project Utopia, or let it launch and destroy the majority of Earth's population. Regardless, you're left to fight the rogue process. This is a mess of nanite that's basically been in charge of everything, and the reason for everyone and everything going crazy and trying to kill you. After defeating the boss, Warren's exo-rig stops working, and he slowly crawls to his wheelchair as the credits roll. You get a different audio message depending on which ending you chose. This game has Iron Mouse. It's a superhero created by Creo, and you can unlock the Iron Mouse costume. It's a really good armor set, and when you stop moving, it plays the Iron Mouse theme song. There's two DLC packs, the good, the bad, and the augmented, and Creo World. Creo World is like a theme park based around Iron Mouse. It even has a roller coaster you can ride.
They built this place here on the campus. It's a place for families. It's like an amusement park. Bobby will love it. I mean, it's amazing. They've got his favorite comic book mascots. They even have a roller coaster.
Okay, give me a second to get this thing started.
This area has a lot of different armor and weapons. You can even get a donut head as an armor set. This area has a mascot that is supposed to be Iron Mouse's sidekick, as well as his arch nemesis. The nemesis is a robot that goes crazy and ties the sidekick to a rocket, and you have to quickly save him before he's killed. He can actually be killed too. and if you're too slow, there's nothing you can do, you just have to hope you do better on your next playthrough. After this, you fight Iron Mouse's nemesis, and if you do it while wearing the Iron Mouse armor, you even get a special achievement. Creo World was a really good DLC pack and definitely felt like a good addition to the game. The good, the bad, and the augmented? Not so much. Remember how I said I was really underleveled my first playthrough? Having this DLC would have helped big time. This is essentially the Chalice Dungeons from Bloodborne. You choose from 9 episodes of a Western TV show and play through it using different modifiers. Each episode ends with a boss fight that's just a regular enemy. This will net you a shitload of tech scrap, extra armor, extra weapons, and all sorts of goodies. This felt like it should have been included. It's not enough to be interesting as its own story, you're essentially playing the same level over and over, and it feels like you need it in order to be high enough level to keep up with the game's difficulty. It also provides a way to warp around the game once you get to the last level. I really don't see why this was extra content. If it was provided with the game, it would have been awesome, but this is essentially just a challenge mode that you have to pay extra for. However, now you can get the whole game, DLC included, in a bundle for pretty cheap. I bought it on sale for $9.99. It's definitely worth that. The good, the bad, and the augmented just should have been with the game, not sold separately, in my opinion. I didn't expect to like this game. I definitely didn't expect for it to be one of my favorite games in recent time. Unfortunately, while the sequel was still good, they completely changed the Surge 2 to make it less dark and more varied levels. Which is fine, but it completely loses the horror aspect as well as the tone. The Surge was lightning in a bottle. It's a fantastic horror game, a fantastic story, and a truly one-of-a-kind game. It's also one of the best sci-fi stories of what can happen if technology gets too advanced and tries to take over. I can't recommend this game enough. I recommend you buy the Augmented Edition and get to cutting.
I was born in a prison with no hope for escape. I got you